speech writing class? Or not speech writing, but communications class? Okay, awesome. All right. I wasn't very much of a person, I was very shy growing up. I didn't like to get in front of classes and speak in front of them. But when you're in a position where you're going to get paid or not paid, you learn to develop some skills really fast. I was a tour guide for about a year and a half at this place called the Forestier Underground Gardens. How many of you have heard of it? All right, the Forestier Underground Gardens is in Fresno. It's been there since the late 1800s. A man by the name of Balthasar Forestier created an underground would-be hotel that was about 10 acres long. Of course, now it's only about 5 acres, and people go underground and they see everything that he built, usually using mostly hardpan. And so that's how I got my skills as a presenter, as a speaker, because again, I was in a position where I was either going to get paid or I wasn't. I'd be out of a job. The reason why I'm here before you all today is, as Professor McGee explained, I am the Deputy Director for Binational of Central California. I'm going to talk to you about basic financial concepts. How many of us worry about money? All right, many of us do, right? How many of us have plans to buy a car or buy a house in the next 2 to 3 years? Okay. Have you made a plan for that? No. Why haven't we made a plan for that? Because we're just kind of winging it, right? When I bought my house at 29, I did not make a plan for that. I just did it, right? I wish I would have made a plan for it because you spend a lot of money when you buy a house, okay? One of the first things is I want you to be comfortable with this presentation. I want you to ask questions. Please follow along, take notes. The value that is in this presentation is worth several $1,000s, I would say, right? And what I teach folks. So again, if you have questions, stop me anytime, ask your question, because I don't want you to forget it. All right, investment in knowledge pays the best interest. What do we think that means?
Learning new concepts of financial.
Learning new things.
Learning new things, yeah.
Pays off, right? Right. That's why we're all going to school. So some of the learning objectives today, right? The benefits of building effective long-term relationships with banks. Factors to consider when selecting a financial institution. I'm not going to read all of these. Right? How to leverage strong personal credit histories to obtain satisfactory financing terms. How to determine your net worth and significance. Right? And how to track and manage your expenses. If you're going to buy a car, you're going to buy a house, even if you're not going to, you should always be managing your expenses, right? That's why I gave you all that budget form in front of you. All right, again, we want to help create financially resilient families. How many of you remember the 2008 recession? How many of you are old enough to do that? Remember that? All right, a lot of people lost their homes, right? People were ending up on the streets. Then we had the pandemic hit in 2020. I'm 35 years old, and there have been about 3 recessions since I've been alive, right? And every time low to middle income families are hit the hardest, right? So we want to make sure that families are being prepared for that next pandemic, that next recession. So I teach things like banking, budgeting, credit and loans, risk management, things like life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care. These are some of the topics that I cover. Any questions so far? We also do one-on-one coachings, and I provide you with digital or online curriculum as well so that you can learn on your own time. So first rule, this is on your budget form for those of you who have it in front of you. If you want to write it down, but it is on your budget form, which is 60% of your paycheck should go to all allocated, fixed income expenses, right? That's your mortgage, that's your rent, that is your taxes, right? 60% of your check should be fixed towards that. 20% of income should be allocated towards your savings and retirement. All right, and 20% of our 20% of our check should go towards our discretionary spending, right? When we go dining out, when we travel, when we go on vacation, right? How many of you work? All right, we're all working. And how much money do you have at the end of the month? Anything to show for it? Probably not, very little, right? Again, I know that it's very difficult to say, hey, I'm going to take $20 out of this $100 and put it towards my savings, but work your way up to it, right? Ask yourself, what can I do without, right? If it's $15, save $15. If it's $50, save that $50, right? And keep building it. All right, how many of you have a bank? All right, everybody should have a bank account, right? We have a savings or checking account, right? We're going to discuss the different types of banks and why they might be advantageous to you. So number one, ask what services do they offer, right? You always want to make sure that the services that they offer are applicable to you. What is the interest rates for savings and checking account? Are there any overdraft fees, right? What is the customer service? You want to make sure that they're going to be attentive to you. Does the bank have online banking or mobile app? Most banks do by now. Right? How easy is it to transfer money out of your account? Can you access your money when traveling, and will your money be insured? A majority of your banks are insured by the federal government, the FDIC, right? Up to $250,000. How many of you have heard about the Silicon Valley Bank that just closed its doors? All right? All of those people who dealt with that bank are going to get their money covered because the federal government's going to come in and fund it. But it's not a cost to the taxpayer because banks pay into this insurance every day, right? So they had enough money to cover it. If you have kids, I encourage you to open an account for them as well. Having a long-term relationship with a bank is important for you and for your kids. All right, so I'm gonna pause on reading here. If somebody else can read this checking account for me, please.
A checking account is a transaction account that will have a debit card linked to it that you can use for purposes. This is where your salary can be paid and where you can send money from. You can also pay regular bills from your current account using direct debits.
Okay, right on, thank you. So I would recommend that you always have a savings account and you have a checking account, right? Savings obviously to save for the future, checking account to pay those bills. And that's where you're gonna have that debit card tied to. Money market accounts and CD accounts. Now, I mentioned earlier a little bit about interest rates, right? When it comes to interest rates, the higher the better, because your money is constantly losing value due to inflation. Does anybody know what the inflation rate was for last year? 6.5%. That means your money lost 6.5% of its value because of inflation last year, right? If you take, well, pre-pandemic, right? If you had $100,000 and you let it sit in your account and it's not growing at the rate of inflation, after 20 years, it'd be worth half of that. Even though the account might still say it's $100,000, right? Because inflation is constantly eating at the value of your money. So money market accounts, what they do is they grow at a little bit of a higher interest rate, right? They will limit the number of withdrawals that you can make each month to usually about 6. So this is that account, yes, you're using it for savings, but you're not using it to pay your bills, again, because it's gonna limit the number of withdrawals. And I don't know about any of you, but I have more than 6 withdrawals a month, okay? So I do have a money market account. I save money in there, but it's not my primary savings account. Right? It's not my primary billing account. Certificates of deposit, yes.
So just so for clarity, inflation, for everyone to understand, where 6% is if you went to the grocery store and you're paying for your bill, what used to cost 6% less is now costing 6% more.
That's correct.
So you're going to buy a burger somewhere, it might have cost you $5 last year, now it's costing you 6% more than the $5 you paid before.
$6 every 100.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly right. Certificates of deposit, again, these will pay you a little bit higher interest rate, right? Your banks usually offer them. The difference here is that with this, is that it must remain untouched for the entirety of the term or risk penalty fees or lost interest. So, for example, if you have a CD account with the bank or you're looking into one, they will generally say, hey, if you put your money in this account for 1 year or for 2 years, we will pay you 4% interest, okay? But the thing is you have to make sure that you don't need that money for that 1 year or 2 years, right? Otherwise, again, you're gonna risk penalty fees or interest. It doesn't mean that you can't access the account, you're just gonna end up losing some of the benefits to it. Any questions on types of accounts? No. All right, so we have traditional banks, right? Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo. You might do business with traditional banks because you need different types of services that the credit unions cannot offer or online banks cannot offer, right? Typically, if you're a business owner, you might look at a traditional bank, higher net worth, right? You're gonna look at a traditional bank. Then we have our online banks. Of course, again, they don't exist physically, they're completely online. And then we have our nonprofit banks, like Noble Credit Union, EECU. These are banks that treat you more like a member, right? And have sometimes better interest rates on their loans, usually more local. All right, we have different types of cards. We have a debit card, credit card. How many of us have a debit card? How many of us have a credit card? All right. Do you use your debit card everywhere you go? Yes? Why are we doing that? Just kidding. And the reason why I say that is because your debit card, you have to remember, is tied directly to that checking or savings account that you have, right? So you have to be mindful of the risk that you're taking every time you swipe it. Especially if you're using it at like those little mom and pop liquor stores, 7-Eleven liquor stores. You might have seen on the news about a month ago, somebody tried to distract one of the attendants, right, at the 7-Eleven, and they were trying to put in a skimmer, right? But luckily they had a camera on that and they recorded the entire thing. So you have to be mindful of where you're swiping that debit card, because once those funds are withdrawn, that becomes immediately your issue, and then becomes a problem for you having to pay bills, right, in those coming weeks. Whereas if you're swiping that credit card, it's really the bank's issue. Of course, you still have to deal with it, but at least you still have funds in your checking account, right? So just be mindful of where you're swiping that card. Keep your PIN number always, secret. Don't share it with anyone else. Maybe not even a spouse, right? And then we have annual percentage rates, right? Annual percentage rates, this is what's tied to your credit card. All right, so the advantages of banking, right? Money is safe, money deposited may earn interest. You have you have a record of your transactions. All right, so for those of you who have credit cards, how many of us are considering getting a credit card? All right, so just be mindful of the things, of the interest rates associated with your credit card. Store credit cards like Target, Costco, right? They typically have higher interest rates. My main credit card that I like to use actually comes from Noble Credit Union. Why? Because the credit unions have generally lower interest rates on their credit card. Whereas if you're going to Target, you might look to 15 to 25% rate, right? Noble starts at 9.99 as their lowest rate, right? There's also going to be promotional opportunities. Some of you probably get mailers, right? It says, hey, sign up for this credit card, 0% interest, like you see here, for 15 months. On the 15th month of the first day, depending on your credit score, right, you're going to get a 15% interest rate, or you're going to get a 26% interest rate. You also have to be mindful that if you start racking up charges on this credit card on the 15th month and the first day, if you do not have that balance paid off, all of the interest that has been accumulating over time, they're now going to fine you for, right? So make sure that on the 15th, before that 15th month and first day, that you're paying it off. Otherwise, you're going to get slapped with an interest bill. If you're getting tired, you feel, pressured, right? You can always opt out of getting pre-screened lists by calling that number or going online, right? They will stop sending you those promotional opportunities for about 5 years, right? Any questions on this? Okay. All right, what percentage of Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings account?
56%.
Anybody else? Oh, did I hit that?
Is that-
I didn't see it. I didn't realize I hit it. All right.
I didn't just know that.
I thought when I looked up there, it was blank. All right, sorry about that, you guys. Okay, so that was a telephone survey of more than 1,000 adults conducted in early January 2023 by a place called Bankrate. All right, what do we think it costs to fix our car? Huh? Probably a couple grand? Yeah? So these people who have less than $1,000 in their savings account, they're gonna have a really rough month, huh? A really rough year, right? All right, budget. So all of you have that budget form in front of you, right? This is what we're saving, this is what we're planning for. Again, rent, mortgage, utilities, insurance, dining out, charitable contributions. A lot of people underestimate how much they're spending on dining out, how much they spend on groceries. You don't have to know the exact number, just have an average of that, right? Create an Excel document and try to track your expenses as best as possible. And I know there's also apps for that. All right, banking, interest. Can somebody read that simple interest line for me? And not him, he read the last one.
Simple interest is a quick and easy method of calculating the interest
Charge.
Charge, sorry. Charge on a loan. Simple interest is determined by multiplying the daily interest rate by the principal by the number of days that elapse between payments. This type of interest usually applies to automobile loans or short-term loans, although some mortgages use this calculation method.
All right, and can somebody read compound interest?
Interest on a loan or deposit calculated based on both the initial principal and accumulated interest from previous periods.
Okay, So what does that mean? It just basically means compound interest is better than simple interest. Compound interest builds on both the principal and the interest that you have saved, right? And I'm gonna have a video explain it a little bit better. As long as it works.
Can you go back one more slide?
Yeah.
Back to that one slide, right there. The other one? Yeah, that one. Okay, it's fine. I got it.
You're taking a note?
Yeah. I got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so it looks like the video is not gonna work, so we're gonna do a little calculation. So if you have your cell phones in front of you, go to your calculator. We're gonna talk about compound interest. So simple interest, as you saw, is mostly applied to your car loans or mortgages, but compound interest is tied to your credit cards, which is why it takes forever to pay off, right? And feel free to, we're gonna go through the monthly exercise on this. And turn your screen to the side, because sometimes the key that we're looking for won't show up unless you turn it to the side. So the 0.04 is the interest rate, right? And we're gonna go, how many of us remember PEMDAS, right? Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division. All right, so you're gonna take the 0.04, you divide that by 12, right? And we're gonna equal that plus 1. And you should have a key that shows x to the y. We see that there on our key? And you're gonna put 12 in there, right? So on your screen, you should have 1.0407, right? And then we're gonna multiply it by 10,000. What did we get? Did I go too fast? Do I need to go again?
Yeah, it was 0.04 divided by 12
Okay, 0.04 divided by 12
plus 1.
plus 1,
And then y,
x to the y, x to the y.
what was the last number?
And then it's gonna be to the 12th power, right?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
And then you're gonna multiply it by 10,000. What's the answer we got? I know we all did it. See you guys looking at your phones. You have an answer?
$10,407.
That's exactly right. So you should have on your screen $10,407 and 42 cents. Okay? So that means that if you had $10,000 in this account, saving at an interest rate of 4%, compounded monthly, you're gonna make $407.42 within a year for doing nothing. How many of us would like to make $400 for doing nothing? Should see everybody's hands raised, right? For doing absolutely nothing. You're not investing it in the stock market. You're not buying and selling something. You're just saying, here's my money. I'll pull it out in a year, and I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna give you $407 back. This is compounding monthly. If it compounds quarterly, you can make $406. If it compounds semi-annually, you can make $404. And if it compounds annually, you can make $400. Easy way to make money. Not doing anything at all. And it's helping you stay ahead of inflation. Because generally, prior to the pandemic, inflation was around 3%. So if you're growing at 4%, you're ahead of the curve, right? Any questions on this? Awesome. You know why? It's this clicker. That's why it doesn't allow me to-
Is that it?
Yeah. All right. So
I think
someone-
if you push the down button, it might let you, but I'm not sure.
Nope, it is that.
Huh, okay.
If someone has $3,000 balance on their credit card that charges 18.9% interest, they pay a minimum of around $120 a month. How long will it take for them to pay it off? Any guesses? Don't be shy.
$5 years.
5 years, 6 months. Anybody else? In the back? Any guesses?
2 years, 9 months.
2 years, 9 months. Further back?
8 years, 7 months.
I'm sorry, 8 years, 7 months? Actual answer is 2 years and 9 months. All right? It'll take you 2 years and 9 months if you make the minimum payments, and you can pay $843 in interest. Again, I don't think we want to give our money away to the banks any more than we have to, right? So it's always important to pay early and pay more. This is the power of compounding. So, who's like 19 or 20 in here? 19, 20? And anybody in their 30s? No, yes, no? You're in your 40s, all right. So you probably wish you learned some of this sooner, huh?
I actually be a life insurance agent, so I kind of know
Some things about life insurance stuff. This is the power of compounding, all right? The younger you start, the better off you're gonna be, right? Planning for your future is like planting a tree. It's gonna take some time for it to bear fruit. So you see here, if you're starting at the age of 25 and you start saving $381 a month, I know that's hard, it's difficult. You're only gonna contribute to your savings $182,000 over 40 years. And the rest of it is gonna grow just from the investments that you have. This is assuming that it's growing at a 7% rate on average throughout those 40 years. You wait till you're 35, you just have to save more than double, right? $820 a month. 45, right? 1,920. 55, saving $5,778 a month just to reach $1 million. So again, the sooner you start, the better. Credit loans. Can somebody read this for me on credit?
Credit is generally defined as a contract agreement in which a borrower receives a sum of money or something of value and repays the lender later, generally with interest.
Okay. And then we see we have a credit score from 300 to 850, right? And we see the various amounts of scores. Ideally, write this down, your credit is at 760. Again, ideally, your credit score is at 760. Obviously, the higher the better, but if you're like, where should I at least be? 760 is where you should be. And when they take a look at your credit, right, there are those 3 different credit bureaus. We have Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. How many of you monitor your credit score each month? 1, 2, good. Everybody else who's not doing it, you should be doing it, especially for a number of reasons, right? You don't want to go in to buy a car or buy a house and realize you have these other expenses that you never signed off on, right? Because somebody stole your identity. So you should be monitoring it each month, because the last thing you want to do is go into the dealership, pull it up and realize you have a 500, 400 credit score because you have defaults because somebody's been running your credit this entire time. So you should be monitoring it monthly. They're going to evaluate your credit score based on new credit, right? What kind of credit accounts, the amounts owed, right? Never go more than 30% of your overall credit. So if you have a $1,000 credit card, don't go over 300 bucks. Payment history, right? Are they defaulting, filing for bankruptcy? Are they paying on time? Or are they paying early or more? Length of credit history, right? Somebody who has 10, 15 years of credit history is going to look a lot better than somebody who's got 2. And types of credit. So types of credit, right? Why would somebody who has a car loan, a home loan, look better than somebody who just has credit cards?
Shows that they're paying it back a lot.
Not exactly. Any other guesses?
Stability?
I'm sorry?
Stability?
It's good that they have stability, but that's not the answer I'm looking for.
because they have property, right? They have a value.
Because it's a secured loan, right?
Okay.
If I'm the bank, I can take your car away from you. I can take that house away from you, right? But when you buy things with credit cards, those are what's called unsecured loans. I don't know what you bought with the credit card and what you bought with your actual money, right? So again, that's why those loans are stronger. What's in a personal credit report, right? Who you are, how much debt you have, again, what type of credit you're using, any bankruptcies, foreclosures. Personal credit report information, right? Names, date of birth, social security number. If you want to purchase it, you can get credit reports that include fraud alerts in your credit score. All right, what does not appear on a personal credit report? Medical history, your income, right? Your savings and checkings accounts. Your investments, that's not going to show up in your credit score. Driving record. All right, if you're on the low end of the credit scale, high risk, more likely to be denied. When you go apply for an apartment, they're gonna look at your credit score, right?
I would say everybody would have bad credit, their driver record was on there.
That's interesting. If approved, may pay higher interest rates, right? Excellent credit or greater credit, lower risk, more likely to get the terms that you want. Okay, so you can go to Experian.com, if you guys wanna write this down, Experian.com. You can go to annualcreditreport.com, and you can go to creditkarma.com. These are all websites in which you can track your credit score. Now, generally, if you ask for a credit report, you would only be able to ask for one free one from each bureau. And you still can, but if you're on Experian.com, right, you create an account with them, don't be surprised if they ask for your social, if they ask for like where you've lived for the last 5 years or where you work. That's again to help identify you, link you up. But when you log in, that's not, you're just checking your credit score. You're not pulling a full-on report, and they're not charging you for that, right? I mean, it doesn't count as what's called a credit inquiry. So again, Experian.com, annualcreditreport.com, or Credit Karma. Either one should be fine. All right, again, check your reports monthly, right? Make sure things aren't showing up on there. Or if things are still on there, let's say you didn't pay something off, you defaulted on it 8 years ago, well, due to federal law, you actually should have, anything like that should be taken off your credit report after 7 years. Okay, 7 years, those things should start falling off. Because that's all they're tracking is the last 7 years. All right, any disputes, have original copies, right, to support your claim. So best practices for building a strong personal credit history: pay your loans and other bills on time, right? I say $1 more and a day early. Keep outstanding revolving debts balances low. Pay off outstanding collection debts, collection accounts and other debts. Avoid any bankruptcies or foreclosures. When you go to buy that car or you go to buy that house, you have about a 45-day window, right? Because generally, if you are getting a credit inquiry every time, right? When you buy that car or house, it used to hurt you, right? But now, when they start realizing that you're shopping around, you have about a 45-day window, so it's not going to dramatically impact your credit score. Did that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Again, maintain a mix of credit accounts, and avoid closing older accounts in good standing. So let's say you have 5 credit cards. You've paid off 3 or 4 of them. Just leave them alone. Cut them up, but keep the balances open, right? Because the moment you close those accounts, your credit history associated with them drops, right? Therefore impacting your credit score. All right, loans, vehicle purchase. Okay, so I had a few people raise their hands, they want to buy a car soon, right? Okay, so it's important when you go in to buy that car that you know what you're doing. Maybe you have a pre-approval, right? Pay attention to the interest rates, just like we have with interest rates on credit cards. The higher the worse, right? The lower the better. Pay attention to the loan amount, the loan term, right? I do not recommend going over 5 years, right? If you're getting a car loan, 60 months or less, right? Not 6, not 7 years, not 8 years. And refinance. So, we'll talk about refinancing here in a second. So when you go to buy that car, right, they're gonna negotiate with you. It's gonna take hours. I mean, I've bought 3 cars. I used to be a car salesman, and in this last time I went to go buy a car, it still took me like 2 or 3 hours. Even though I knew my credit score and everything I needed to do. And they're gonna show you this form. It's called a bill of sale. It's this long, has about 5 areas in which you're gonna sign. All right, if you wanna pass this around. Take a look at it. You'll see those 5 top boxes, right? Annual percentage rate. Everything that you've negotiated verbally does not matter unless it's on that document, right? Once you sign it, right? And it can be difficult to get out of. So make sure that you're paying attention at all times. You're gonna look at the annual percentage rate, right? 3.04%, the finance charge. That is what I'm paying in interest alone over 5 years, assuming I don't pay it off any sooner, right? The car costs $20,614. So you take the finance charge plus the amount financed. This is my total number of payments. I'm gonna pay $22,000 on that car. All right, I put $2,000 as a down payment. My monthly car payment came out to $313. So it's important to know that when you go to buy that car, you are exactly aware of how much you can afford and take into consideration car insurance, right? And ask yourself, does the APR match what you discussed? Does the amount financed match the number at the bottom, right? Does the finance charge plus the amount financed match the total number of payments? As you see on that form, it looks nice in those little boxes, and then it starts getting drawn out, and you start to see all these DMV fees, environmental fees, right? Any additions they try to make to the car, right? So just be mindful of that. Any questions on the car buying process? I always recommend that you either take somebody with you who's a mechanic or knows the negotiation process, especially if you're buying a used car.
You said that it would be hard to get out of it. What if somebody did purchase the car? Is there a way to get out of it?
Sometimes there can be. Again, if you throw an uproar, right? Sometimes the sales manager might be able to reverse it.
California is a no cool-off state though.
Okay.
So you don't have a right to say, oh, I thought about it for 24 hours and I don't want this car anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, but places like CarMax,
Yeah.
I think you had a 5-day or
Yeah.
10-day return. That's where I used to work, right? But not every used car dealership's like that. Like,
Yeah.
But that was actually their policy, right? All right, so talking about interest rates. So I mentioned a moment ago about refinancing. How many of us are familiar with that term already? Okay, just one of us? All right, so when it comes to buying a car, right, you're getting it financed. And you're getting it to whatever the loan term, right, and the rates are. What I would say to you is if you can't afford it, or if you're getting a term in which you do not agree with, or is exorbitant amount of fees, they're saying, hey, you're gonna get a 12% interest rate, it's a 6-year loan. It goes against everything that I've recommended for you, right? But at the end of the day, you still need to get to work. You have all of these responsibilities, right? You're like, I still need to buy this car. What should I do? Well, what you're gonna do is you're gonna pay that car, right? You can take that loan term, but 6 months, maybe to a year down the road, I want you to refinance that car, right? Lower the interest rate. What you do is you go to another bank and say, hey, I've got this car, this is my loan terms, see if you can beat it, right? Sometimes they might ask for additional down payment, be ready for that, right? But what they might say is, okay, yeah, we can get you at a 5% interest rate for 5 years. Great, you just saved yourself $70 a month, okay? Because for every interest rate you drop, you're gonna drop about $8 to $10 on your monthly bill. So be mindful of that. If you're in that position, hey, I understand, it's difficult to be in. Obviously, if you can wait longer to get a better term. But if you can't, refinance in that 6 months to a year. Do not feel like you're stuck paying that bill for the next 6 years, right? Get a better loan term. Any questions on refinancing? All right. Refinancing, you can also do that when you buy a house. How many of us want to buy a house? All right. Buying a house is building generational wealth, right? I can leave it to somebody, I can leave it to family, I can leave it to a charity. Renting an apartment. How many of you live in an apartment right now? Okay, did your rates go up after the pandemic? How much did it go up? Probably a few $100s?
Yeah.
Okay, when you buy a house, the only time the house is gonna go up is if the value of the house goes up, and the only thing that's going up is the taxes, right? A lot of people are still struggling, right, during the pandemic because their rent went from $1,500 to $2,500, right? That's uncontrollable, right? You just lost $1,000 and you're trying to figure out where you live. Either one, you're gonna stay where you are or you're gonna have to move, right? So if you're ever considering buying a house, if you're gonna stay in the same place for 3 to 4 years, recommend buying a home, right? So buying a house. So when I went to go buy my house, right, I got tacked on what's called primary mortgage insurance, which I didn't know what it was, and I don't even remember if my loan officer told me that I was getting it. Primary mortgage insurance is a safety net for banks. What they're saying is, hey, I trust you enough that I'm gonna give you this loan amount, but I don't trust you enough, so I'm gonna put on what's called primary mortgage insurance. And essentially this is if I default on the house, if I don't pay the bill, they're gonna get their money back. So I'm actually paying an extra $90 a month for nothing. It doesn't go towards the principal to the house. It doesn't cover me in the event of anything, right? It only covers the banks. So what did I do is I refinanced about 2 to 3 years later and got that $90 off, right? I got that PMI off because the value of the house went up so I had more equity, all right? Can somebody read equity for me?
The value of a mortgage property after deduction of charges against it.
All right, so what does that mean? So that means if your house is worth 150,000, I'm sorry, 300,000, and you owe 150,000, you have $150,000 worth of positive equity. I'll say that again because I think it was a little confusing. If the value of the house is 300 grand and you owe only 150, then you have 150,000 worth of equity. Okay? And you can use that positive equity to take out another loan. Yay! And that's what a lot of real estate investors do, right? They take out what's called a home equity line of credit, a HELOC. This home equity line of credit allows them to take out, you know, let's say that 150 bucks or 150,000, or maybe it's 100 grand, and they go buy another house with it, right? That's what you can do with a HELOC. Generally a lower interest rate, right? And because it's a house and because it's a HELOC, the amount of the money spent on your interest rates is actually tax deductible. Another benefit of being a homeowner, right? Any questions? No questions? I'm that good? Thanks. All right, when you go buy a house, write this down. They're gonna look at your credit score. They're gonna look at your debt. They're gonna look at your income, your employment, right? They wanna see some stability. Your assets, right? Assets. Down payment, are we putting 3.5% down or are we putting 20% down? Your debt to income ratio. I bought my house using what's called a first time home buyer loan, 3.5% down, right? So if you're putting less than 20% down on that house, right, you're gonna have that primary mortgage insurance tacked on as part of your bill. Also write this down. When you go shopping around for that house, ask your loan officer if there are grants available to you. I got a grant for about $7,000 in addition to my down payment. And grants, you do not have to pay back.
What about like some cities like Armona, for instance? I think they were giving away some type of grant, like $30,000. Go over to those.
What about it?
over there?
Sometimes the cities do that.
Sometimes they do.
Yeah. I mean, I think as a result of Build Back Better, I know there was some federal legislation, I think California might have passed some things. Some of the cities are helping with, you know, low income individuals, middle income, get homes, right? So again, always just ask, make sure that and you don't always have to stick to one loan officer, right? Shop around, who's a better realtor, who's a better loan officer, right? Ask questions. All right. Can somebody read these three green circles here for me? The bottom green.
Is that 3.9 trillion?
That's 3.9 trillion.
3.9 trillion plus outstanding U.S. consumer debt, 15,000 average American credit card debt per household, 62% Americans carry credit card debt month to month.
Whew. It's a lot, right? That's a lot of debt. So, for those of you who may be struggling or know somebody who else is struggling, and please share this information with other folks, the notes that you guys are taking today. If you're struggling to manage your debt, right, you have a lot of credit cards, what have you, or any other debts, you can always try to consolidate, right? What that means is you're gonna take those multiple accounts, those 5, 6, 7 accounts, whatever, and you're gonna turn it into one account, right? So this is the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. There's a phone number there, you have the website there, right? They will find you an organization that can help you. They'll do a free consultation, and then after that, they might charge for their services. When you do this, there's a reason why you're consolidating your debt. Pros are that there's one monthly payment. They're generally gonna lower your interest rate. It's gonna help you rebuild your credit, right, and get out of debt faster. I had a young woman come to me, because I used to be a financial advisor again, was paying about $625 in credit cards. I put her in touch with the debt consolidation group. She started paying $418 a month, right? Lowered her interest rate, put her on her payment plan. This is better because now she has an extra $200 to do whatever she wants with, right? Either put it more towards savings or go spend more of it, right? The cons though is this closes accounts. How many of you remember what I said about closing accounts? You shouldn't have forgotten, it was only about 2 minutes ago. All right, missed payments may be worse, and you may pay more interest over time, right? Sometimes people will ask me, well, is this a good idea? Well, I'm like, if you're not buying a house or buying a car in the next year or two, yeah, I would consolidate my debt if that's where you need to be. Because if you have 15, 20, 22% of interest rates, and they can get you in a 10% loan, right, that's better, right? Because you want to pay that off sooner, so that when you go buy that house or car a year and a half, 2 years from now, you're in better standing, and maybe you've paid off those debts sooner rather than later. All right, I'm not gonna cover bankruptcy unless somebody really wants me to. I don't think we have anybody in bankruptcy situation. Oh, it's this clicker.
Sorry. I think if you get to that slide and you hit the space bar, you might be able to, if you put it on a video.
Oh, you know why? It's because this is on Google Drive, and so I didn't set it up.
Oh, with the
way
slide. Okay, got it.
with my slides. Okay, so you guys are gonna get to see all this. So can somebody read the first line for me? Somebody else other than the front? You, please.
Nevada has the following assets: a home valued at $240,000, car for $30,000, $10,000 worth of furniture, $3,500 worth of stamp collections, $1,800 in jewelry, $2,000 in savings, and $17,000 in her 401k.
All right. So you might have seen, remember in the home buying slide, right? It said they're gonna look at your assets and your debts, right? Well, these are her assets. This is Claudia's assets. Generally, what I would do is I'd ask you to add it all up. You'll see that she has $304,300 worth of assets. And in her liabilities, she has $145,900 worth of liabilities, right? Therefore, she has a total net worth, assets minus liabilities, at $158,400, right? You always want to be in the positive. Any questions on net worth or how we determine that? One of the other things that will help with your net worth, some of you may not, but I know that some people have what's called permanent life insurance because their parents bought it for them when they were children. Permanent life insurance builds what's called cash value inside of it. That cash value can actually be included in your net worth. All right, so I was told to give you guys about 15 minutes, about 27 minutes ahead. Wealth accumulation. So you guys can write this down, take a screenshot. I highly encourage you to write it down because if you just take a picture, it's just going to get lost in all your other pictures. All right. You guys all just took pictures. Wealth accumulation, emergency savings, 3 to 9 months. This is where your money should be stored in savings, checking accounts, money market accounts, right? Money that is liquid. We have access to it, right? Save 3 to 9 months. During the recession, it took people a year or more to get another job, right? On average, it might take you 6 months to find a new job, okay? So if you have $3,000 worth of bills, you should have $9,000 worth of savings. All right? 9 months is good, a year max, right? Then we start looking at short-term savings. This is where we start looking at investments or bonds, right? When you buy a stock or a share of a company, you own a piece of that company. When you buy a bond, you own the debt of that company, right? Or debt of the government, right? Why do we buy these things? Well, because when we buy investments, right, they're growing, they're helping us stay ahead of inflation. Same thing with bonds, right? Bonds generally grow at a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% interest rate. It just depends on how the market's doing, where interest rates are. So we want to stay ahead of inflation, okay? Midterm, this is where if we have goals that are 10 years down the road, we might start looking at things like permanent life insurance. We might start looking at real estate, right? And then we have long-term savings, right? This is where we're starting to talk about retirement. Accounts we can't touch until we're 59 and a half or older, right? We might have money in a 401k, right? A 403b, or what's called a SEP IRA. What's important is that these accounts are all very similar. 401ks are just for big organizations, generally have more than 100 employees. A 403b, I believe, is for government employees, so that might be 457s. And then the SEP IRA is for business owners, right? What's important is all of these accounts are pre-tax, right? So if you put $500 in that account, it's not taxed. However, when you retire, it's gonna be taxed. The one that's different here is what's called the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is an after-tax funded account. So you put $500 today that's already been taxed. When it comes to retirement, you're not gonna get taxed, okay? Did I explain that clearly? All right, awesome. So you're sitting here, you're thinking about savings, you're thinking about all the fun stuff, you're like, I wanna make money, right? But if you do not have the coverage necessary, you're playing with fire, right? If you have kids, you have family, you have people that you take care of, you care about, life insurance is what you need to have, right? I got into this work because of the people who are doing car washes on the street corners, right? Trying to raise money in Fresno. How many of you have been a part of that? Having to do a car wash, maybe do a food drive, right? Because somebody passed away. It's not a position I'd want to put my family in. I don't think anybody else wants to. So life insurance is a way to cover you, right? A minimum of $25,000 of life insurance coverage. Disability insurance. I know some of you are young. I think somebody said they were 19, right? 20. You have about a 25% chance of becoming disabled from the time that you begin working to the time that you retire. Right? You're more likely to become disabled than to die. Long-term care insurance. How many of you take care of somebody at home? Or know somebody who's in a nursing facility? If you have a history of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia in your family, right? Long-term care insurance is what you're gonna wanna have, right? This will help cover your expenses if you need somebody to take care of you at home, or if you need somebody, or if you end up in a nursing facility, right? On average, that costs about $75,000 a year. So you wanna have some insurance. Because if you do not have this coverage, all of these accounts are gonna get drained. All of your planning will go like that, right? Homeowners, renters insurance, even if you're renting with family, somebody you know, it doesn't matter, get renters insurance. It only costs about 12 bucks. Once you become a homeowner, get homeowners insurance, have a homeowner's warranty, those are two separate things, right? Car insurance, everybody knows I have car insurance. How many of you, who's familiar with the car insurance minimums in California? We all drive, right? Some of us do. What's the car insurance minimums?
Is it 10, 15, or 15?
It's $15.30, right?
15.30.
$15.30, but the average car accident costs about 12 grand, right? I myself have $25.50 worth of coverage, right? Because I do not want to be in a position where I have to pay more, right?
I got 5,100.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Hit a Mercedes
expensive.
Benz, man.
Yeah, exactly. You hit a Mercedes Benz, you hit somebody nice house,
You're obligated
somebody
to
with a
cover
great
that.
attorney, right? So just be mindful of that. Have that important coverage because your accounts will get drained the moment you don't have it. Any questions on this? On planning? Okay. Income by education level, right? We're all going to school to better ourselves, get a better education. Right, you can see that the higher education, the more likely your income's gonna go up. This is on average, this is not for your friend who sings, right? Who's a big business person, right? Earnings and unemployment rates, right? The higher education, less likely to be unemployed. And generally have more in your savings account. All right, will more money solve my problems, yes or no? Yes? Everybody says yes? I don't know, some of you already told me you guys don't even budget. Studies show that lottery winners are more likely to declare bankruptcy within 3 to 5 years than the average American. Nearly 1/3 of lottery winners eventually declare bankruptcy. If you are not putting these habits in place, where you change your spending habits, you're tracking your expenses, and you're paying yourself first, more than likely, money will not solve all your problems. You may be in a position where you end up filing bankruptcy. Okay, so be mindful of that. Any questions? All right, I think this is my last slide. Write this down. Definitely write it down, do not take a picture of it. Generate income. How many of us just work? right? To bring in income, just working, right? Do we want to work for the rest of our lives? Do we want to make money while we sleep? Yes? No? Maybe so? All right, I know I do. Earned income, that's where we get our wages, right? We go to work, 8 to 5, 6 to 2 in the morning, whatever it might be. Salaries, tips, right? Then we're gonna make profit from the things that we sell. Interest income, that's that interest I was talking about earlier, savings interest, right? The money market interest, CD accounts, dividend income. When you own a stock, sometimes, let's say you buy my stock, you buy Samuel's stock, and we say, what's your name? In glasses?
Brandon.
Brandon, I'm saying, Brandon, thank you for buying my shares. I'm gonna give you 10 cents for every share that you own. And Brandon's gonna be like, great, I'm gonna buy 1,000 shares, right? So I'm gonna give him 10 cents for every share that he owns. That's dividend income, right? Royalty income. If you're a if you're a songwriter, you write a book, that's your royalty income, right? Easy way to make money. Rental income, you can rent anything. Rent out your car, right? Rent your house, rent your DJ equipment, whatever it might be. Extra income. And then capital gains, right? Do you have a question? No, you good? Any questions on this, generate income? Yes.
What's capital gains?
Capital gains would be like the sale of a stock, right? You bought the stock at 15, it went up to 21, that's a capital gain, right?
Or if you bought a house and you didn't keep it for the 3 years that he was talking about, and then you owe capital gains on what you made on the house if you didn't live in it long enough.
Would flipping houses be considered a capital gains or?
Depends on how long you generally
Yeah.
live in it.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do know, like, I think it's after like 4 or 5 years, if you sell your house, you don't get taxed on that 250, like up to
Yeah.
250 grand.
Right.
If you're married, up to $500,000 on the profit of that house. But usually there's a timeline associated with it. All right. There's no quiz. Actually, that thing still might work. That's my email address. That's my phone number. If you guys wanted to get in touch, you want to do one-on-one coaching, you can do it via Zoom or in person. But I am in Fresno. But I write that information down. Any questions? I know you guys have questions. This would be something I didn't cover today. And another one.